Hey y'all, I'm so incredibly stoked to be hosting this live stream for you. This is Figma Like the Pros. That's tips and tricks from the team that builds Figma. Now, I'm incredibly excited about this because it's one of our most popular live streams to date, and I think that's true for a few reasons. One, it's all about how internal Figmates, that's right, that's what we call them, the internal Figma employees, how they use Figma. We use this product every day. So they've got to know surely some interesting tips and tricks for you. And do they ever? The other thing that I love about it is that it's rapid fire. Every employee here or Figmate is going to be presenting for about 5 minutes and giving you as much knowledge as they can in their area of discipline. And I think that's definitely my style of a live stream because you're going to get out of this thing having so much more information than when you started. And if there's ever a segment that's really not for you, just wait a few minutes and there's going to be something for you. First of all, I'm Rogie King. I'm a designer advocate on the community team here at Figma. Now, of course, I love working with all of our team. I love building plugins, I love designing and all of this, but I love the fact that this live stream, we're going to be having so many different topics, from plugins to project management, to how engineers use Figma, to our product team, to research, to our brand team and illustration systems, and design teams. So many different teams sharing awesome knowledge for you. Now also, we have a lot of fresh faces here that are going to be sharing today. We've got Mallory Dean, Natasha Tenggoro, Leandro Castelao, Kaitie Chambers, Laura Pang, Bettina Chou, Chui, Ian Hall, Cai Charniga, and Jake Albaugh. But without further ado, we're going to kick it off because this is rapid fire. So we're going to jump right in first with Mallory Dean, who's a designer advocate on the community team. Hey, same team as me. So Mal, let's go ahead and get going. Kick it off.
Hey everyone, my name is Mallory Dean and I'm a designer advocate at Figma, and today we're going to go over some really awesome Figma and FigJam tips. You can follow me at mdeandesign on all social platforms and I hope to see you there. Today we're going to go over 10 Figma gems that will help you up-level your workflow, and hopefully you can share some of these with your coworkers as well. So the first tip we're going to start off with is delete and heal, and this is all within the pen tool, and this is going to help you working with your vector paths. So in the left example, we're going to delete and heal a vertex with the pen tool. So you're going to double click into your path, hit P on your keyboard, or come up here and click the pen tool. And what we're going to do is hit Option or Alt and click on any of these points. And as we do it, it's going to delete these points and automatically heal my path. So this is going to be really great for all those illustrators out there or any folks that really want to speed work when they're using the pen tool. Next, we're going to show how you can delete and heal select vertices and edges. This is really great for actually smoothing those curves in your path. As you can see, when I select this path right here, I just have an excess of points that I could really smooth out and make it more streamlined. So what I'm going to do is hold down Shift, and I'm going to drag to select a few of these, and while holding down Shift, I'm going to hit Delete, and you'll see that it takes away some of those points and really smooths out this curve. And let's just try it again for down here a bit. Let's just smooth these out. And as you can see, it's starting to make a nicer curve. Next, let's talk about the paint bucket tool, which is also within your path. So once you select that, you can hit B on your keyboard or click up here into this paint bucket, and then you'll be able to color in any overlapping paths and have those be fills. So that way you don't have to do an extra path within there just to add color. This is going to be really helpful for those illustrators out there that really want to add those selected fills within their shapes. Next, we're going to talk about nudge amount. So this is all about using your keyboard arrows to nudge things around on the canvas. You can do a small nudge with just one up and down arrow, or you can hold down Shift and do a larger nudge. By default, they are set to 1 and 10. You can actually customize this by going to File, Preferences, and down to Nudge Amount. So instead of 10, I want to set this to 8 so I can align it more towards a 4 to 8 pixel grid. And that way, when I move this in this canvas, you can see that it's moving in multiples of 8. Let's talk about scaling. Now, scaling is really important when we're working with objects on our canvas. If you just hold down Shift and move this, you can tell that these paths and these strokes are not retaining their current properties and how they look. So what we can do is hit K, and we can actually scale this so it will scale with constraints. We also recently added the scale panel over here, so you can define exactly how much you want it to scale and from what corner you want it to scale. So I want to scale it 3x, and you'll see that it's going to come from the middle up. Did you know that you can actually do some canvas editing for auto layout? This is going to be really helpful for padding. So when I have my object selected, you'll see these pink little handlebars and strokes. So I'm going to select it here, and I am going to actually drag and show that I can change the padding on this card. If I hold down Option, I can actually adjust the padding for the opposite sides, and I hold down Option Shift, I can adjust all of them at once. I can always also just click on one of these to type in the number I want to change it to. So I'm going to change this to 16, and you'll see that only that corner changed. Next, we have copy and paste properties. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy and paste these styles onto this circle. We're going to click the object I want to copy the styles from, hit Command Option C, then click the object I want to paste it to, Command Option V, and now you'll see those styles have carried over, but that original shape is still intact. We can do the same thing with text. So I'm going to copy this beautiful styling here, Command Option C, and then do Command Option V, and now we have a beautiful Comic Sans howdy. Did you know that you can actually add multiple fills to your images, frames, or whatever you want on the canvas? As you can see right now, this frame has an image fill here, but I'm gonna add another, and automatically it adds a 20% black opacity, which is already giving a lot more contrast to our text. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually change this to a linear gradient. I'm going to switch these around so we can retain some of the original light up here, and then maybe bump this up to 30% opacity. That's looking so much better. You can think of all the possibilities you can have here with additional image fills, layer gradients, and play around with color modes as well. Really quick one, but did you know that you can make selections for your comments? So when you are in the commenting tool, you can actually drag and drop to select a specific point to what you want to refer in your comment. So maybe I can say not liking this gray. And once I publish that comment, if I go back and hover over it, it will show me what it's referring to. Great for collaboration, async with your teammates. Another quick one, but you don't have to go to the layers panel to check out the hierarchy of your object or your frame. So what you can do is Command right click if you're using a mouse, and you can thumb through the different layers within this frame. You can also always do right click and select layer, and that will show you all the different layers that you can then select from. And last but certainly not least, we have Figma to FigJam interoperability. This means that our two products work seamlessly together. They are built to work in tandem. So that means I can take things from Figma and bring them into FigJam and vice versa. So I've actually brought this screen into FigJam, and within here I can edit the text. I can, if I had components on the screen, I can swap those variants out, and I'll show you here you can do that as well. If I have stickies, I can then go ahead and bring them back into my design files and edit the text. So this creates a really seamless way for when you want to maybe critique in FigJam and then bring those back into Figma. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you learned something new today.
Hey everyone, really glad to be here today to walk you through some behind the scenes work on FigJam. I'm Natasha, a product designer on FigJam's engagement team, and overall our team's mission is to help more people discover the magic of FigJam. Many of us today in this call will be talking about, helping you get the most out of FigJam as a product, whether it's how to better use templates or find hidden gems or discover helpful keyboard shortcuts. And I'm here today to walk you through a small experiment that we're actually running on the FigJam engagement team to better help people orient themselves on FigJam for the first time. Why is that important? Well, if you're here today, I'm pretty sure you're relatively aware of FigJam. But when we actually look back to our first encounters with the product, it's usually because you either saw people talk about it on Twitter, or you had a designer on your team introduce it to you, or you were just already a strong Figma user and wanted to explore a new ancillary product. But at the end of the day, you still didn't know much about it, and that's a very common problem. Many people just don't know what to use FigJam for. When we look beyond this community, let's say I'm an engineer at a startup or a PM working at a non-tech vertical, I don't really know what FigJam is and what to use FigJam for. And as a product, we also really believe in lowering the barrier of use so that FigJam remains simple and intuitive for many users. But no matter how simple of a product we make, some people are just naturally not visual communicators. They're not used to that mental model of working within a 2D infinite canvas. And not to mention, FigJam usually, or Figma in general, naturally feels more approachable to designers or novice designers, since historically we have a higher tolerance for learning new design tools. We're constantly trying to stay up to date with the new apps and all these tools all at once, but the path to proficiency for someone like a product manager who's more frequently used to writing in docs is a little bit more challenging to navigate. So as a team, one of our goals is to think about how do we want to slowly ease people who don't really know what to use FigJam for and who aren't naturally visual communicators to build this conceptual understanding of how to get the best of FigJam. And one of our most recent experiments that we launched was around giving new users this ability to try out a limited selection of prominent use cases and go into a guided tutorial to make something within that use case. Our hypothesis was that we believe that by making these use cases more prominent from the get-go, and it's sort of giving people an understanding and a hands-on tutorial that we eventually feel like will help create a better first impression and then lead to a deeper understanding of how to use our product over time. And we're not going to be able to get into the whole design experience with you today, but I wanted to share 5 tactics and principles that the team developed behind the scenes for this experiment that you may be able to carry with you as you're designing for first-time guidance in your product. Tip number 1. First is to limit choice and expose core concepts over time. As a team, we made this concerted effort to limit the use cases a new user might see when you first land onto FigJam. Previously, we just landed you in our templates modal where it sort of held over 100 plus templates to choose from. And in order to reduce this cognitive friction and choice paralysis, we specifically selected our most primary use cases that we think a new user will be coming in for so that they can make an easier decision on where to start in our product. So when a new user, first lands onto FigJam, they would essentially see the canvas suggesting forming use cases, dreaming up new ideas, sharing team updates, planning for the future, and drawing up diagrams. And while it's true that you can use FigJam for so many things, effective user education comes with exposing new users to these core concepts over time. So it's important for us not to bombard people with too much information off the bat. Tip number 2, alleviate blank canvas anxiety. There's nothing worse than getting past the sign-up flow and landing into an intimidating and anxiety-inducing empty canvas. And these moments oftentimes feel so overwhelming because it's either the headroom of possibilities feel too infinite or, you just don't know where to start. And as a team, we wanted to lower the ceiling and bolster the metaphorical floor new users stand on by allowing them to preview the template within each use case first as a lightweight suggestion. And we call this interaction ghost previews, where the interface essentially disambiguates that post-click content by allowing people to preview it first. And not only does this help a new user decide whether a use case is right for them, but it also helps alleviate that blank canvas anxiety by leveraging real content as inspiration to motivate people to make something. Tip number 3, show, don't tell. Now, once you do select into a use case you're interested in, you then go through these series of suggestive tooltips that tour you around the template. These tooltips are meant to guide you to utilize our tools in context, allowing you to learn by doing, essentially. By enabling this type of experience to directly also happen on the canvas, it also means that the canvas itself is doing the teaching. And this means that people can directly select and manipulate nodes and dive deep into our tools with confidence that FigJam can teach me how to use it. And the cherry on top is that you're not only learning about each tool, but you're also learning how to apply that tool in the context of a use case. So next time you're running a brainstorm with your team or you're doing quarterly planning, you know exactly what to use and where it lives. Tip number 4, give users agency to choose their path. One important small principle that we really believed in was to empower people to go at their own pace and choose their path to education. Not everyone learns the same way, and for many new users, that could mean wanting to jump into a product and play around with everything right away, or it could, it could mean wanting something that's a little bit more guided. So one small detail that we added was an ability to revisit those templates down the line in your own time, in case, you just want to create something that you already have in mind right away. So when a user dismisses that modal to start from scratch, we just reassure them that they can find these lessons again in the future. And then the last tip, content is king. One important call out I want to make is the tone of voice that our talented UX writer Schmidt crafted for this new user experience. Now, content tones can vary depending on the nature of your product, but for FigJam, we really try to utilize content in unique and fun ways. So for this experiment, for example, our UX writer did a fantastic job emulating a conversational tone within each tooltip that makes it feel like your teammate or your friend is personally taking you through the product themselves. And I think this is such a special way to make learning a new product feel a little bit more personal. So to recap, here are the 5 principles I quickly walked everyone through today, and I'm hoping that they can be helpful tactics and tips so that you also can help set up your teams up for success when it comes to creating a positive first impression in your product that gets people excited to come back, since at the end of the day, that's what matters most. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Rogie. Hi, everyone. My name is Leandro Castelao. I go by Draw. He, him are my pronouns, and I'm a brand designer here at Figma's brand studio team. So today I'll be talking about our illustration library. Quick background, this library contains tons of illustrations our team built with the goal of providing fresh assets to fellow Figmates. This is a grab and go style. Users come to the file, check what's available, then they can use it like any other library, copying, pasting, swapping on their files, which oftentimes are presentations. And to be honest, these illustrations do their part in making those decks really shine. So we built the library using components, and today I'll walk you all through a little bit of how that process went. But first, a library needs consistency, and one of our pillars is the color. This is our Figma brand color palette. It's a shared library we use in our team, and it really makes things easier when it comes to color, especially when working with these type of assets where you really want to stay on brand. And it's very easy to update if needed to. Another important characteristic of our illustrations is the stroke weight. Each of these assets on the library comes in 3 different color options, and each of these has a very specific weight value. So to speed things up, you know how important shortcuts are, and this is one of my favorites. Basically what it does, it copies and pastes the style of an object into another one. On Mac, you do Option Command C and then Option Command V. It's just magical. So like I just mentioned, each of these illustrations comes in 3 sizes, and here's an example of one of them in large, medium, and small. So you can see that the stroke weight is different on each of these, and also the composition changes. Especially if you check the smallest version of the asset, you can see that there are less elements. So a top tip, if you're working with different sizes and you're looking for consistency, create a flexible layout grid system, one that fits your needs. Ours has a basic square grid, those thin red blocks that you see, and then 3 distinctive columns, 1 per each size. And each of these columns has a specific color, so it's easy to distinguish which one is which. So finally, once you have all the grids that you need, you can create a unique style that contains the different grids. In this case, the style we call illustration grid, and it has the large, medium, and small grid on it, plus the basic grid block. That way, when you're working on an asset of any size, it's very easy to see how different it is from all the other sizes available. So this opens the door for another shortcut, Control G. This is a great shortcut that lets you turn on and off the visibility of the grids. It's really helpful, especially in cases like this, where the grid can really get in the way of what you're creating. Okay, so here's the money. I mentioned earlier that this library uses components, and here's how we do it. Each finished illustration has 3 different sizes, as I explained before, large, medium, and small, and 2 color options that we call 1 and 2, easy. If you see the top row, there are 3 sizes using the same color combination. And if you see the row below, it's the same thing, but in a different color combo. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna select the 6 frames and we're gonna turn them into a component set. By default, a variant will be created and we'll rename that variant size. And we'll add a new variant and we're gonna name it color. So all we have to do now is edit the values. So I just select the 3 large ones, name the large, select the medium ones, I name the medium, and I'll do the same with the small. Then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select the top row and I'm gonna change the values of color for 1, And I'm going to do the same with the row below and change the values for Chou. And that's it. That's how we do it. So this is the library in real life. This is a file called Cupboard that our creative director, Damien Correll, came up with. It's an awesome resource with a bunch of slides for decks. And the cool thing is that it uses the illustration library we created. So you can swap each of these illustrations to match the topic of your presentation. You can change the colors. It's a really, really fun resource. So last but not least, I want to thank the brand studio team. They had a lot to do with what I just shown, and they're amazing. So thanks to them, and thanks everyone today at Figma Like the Pros. I'm really excited to be here. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much, Rogie. And hi, everyone. My name's Kaitie Chambers, and I'm a FigJam advocate here. And our FigJam team is obsessed with visual communication and meeting experience. And there's few things I personally love more than a really well-run meeting. But we also know it's really hard to facilitate meetings today. It can be hard to get your group engaged and keep them engaged throughout your meeting, or you get the loudest person dominating the conversation. And so today, I'm excited to share 5 tips to redesign your meetings using FigJam to make them more collaborative and engaging. Let's dig right in. My first tip is to always set meeting guidelines at the start of your meetings. This sets the stage for your meeting and lets your participants know how you expect them to show up. It can be as simple as just asking your participants to stay present during your meeting and any other things that are going to be important for your group to buy into in order to reach your meeting goals. If you're looking for inspiration, I've created a community file you can find at figma.com/community, where you can get some sample guidelines of things I commonly bring into various types of meetings that I'm hosting in 3 different styles. I've also created these as components in Figma, so you have a few different color variants as well as some illustrations to match the style of your board. So try using these out as a starting point and then go ahead and create your own from there. And this is also a great opportunity to get your group engaged by having them react with emotes. So bringing them into the board, review your guidelines together. They can find emotes down here in the toolbar, and they can just react to let everyone know that you're all aligned and you're on the same page about how everyone's going to be showing up to the meeting. That's my first tip. Moving on to tip number 2, show your style with custom sticker libraries. Stickers you can find again here on the toolbar, and they're a great way to react to certain things you're seeing on the board. And not only that, you can add custom sticker libraries for certain elements you want to bring in for your meeting. A few tips I love to do with these custom sticker libraries. First is bringing in FigJam tips. So FigJam tips is a great community file that's available for you to share and teach your participants functionality if they may or may not be comfortable with FigJam already. Now what you can do is you can copy all of these and bring them into a Figma file, and then you can turn each of these into a component. And then you can go over to your assets here and publish that as a library. That will then allow you to bring them in as a custom sticker library here in FigJam. So I've pulled in my FigJam tips. And then now if I ever want to bring in a tip that I'm teaching folks for the first time, I can just bring that into my board here and share that with my participants. So that's the first way I love to use custom sticker libraries. A few other quick ones. Brand assets. If you want to bring in your logo or illustrations that your team has created, you can easily add those in as sticker libraries and insert them anywhere on any board. Also, wireframing components. If you want to quickly concept with your team, you can bring that in as a library, and then you'll have buttons, frames, things that you want to use to jam with your team. And finally, I love bringing in teammate photos. So this is a great way if you want to bring teammates into your board or have your own photo easily accessible on your board. You can easily search for that and bring in your own photos here. So those are a few ways you can use custom sticker libraries to show your own style in your meetings. Moving on to my third tip, start super simple. Have an super easy entry activity that can get people into the board, get them engaging with one another, and build their confidence so they're ready to participate in the rest of your meeting. A few tools you can use in FigJam to make this easy. First, there's a sticker. If you search for collaborator, there's a sticker card. Again, there's different variants. So you can bring in different colors and styles of that. And if you place a bunch of these on your board for the number of participants you have, then all they have to do is click in and start filling out their details to introduce themselves. This is a great one if everyone doesn't know each other in the room, just to allow everyone to have a chance to introduce themselves. Another tool you can use are widgets. Polls are one of my favorite. If you go in your toolbar and look under the widgets there, you'll see all types of widgets. Poll widget is one of my favorites, just a one-click response just to get everyone engaged and responding to a certain type of question. Another Figma favorite is the photo booth app, allow everyone to add a photo of themselves to the board. But it doesn't have to be elaborate. You can just have it super simple, a text with some prompts, some icebreaker question, and then have stickies for everyone to respond and react to one another. And if you're still looking for more inspiration on a super simple entry activity, there's a great template called Icebreakers where you can find other examples you can pull into your board. Moving on to my fourth tip of the day, it's important to create a balance during your meeting and also a flow of information that you're sharing. It's important because attendees are going to disengage if they ever become bored or uncomfortable. So you want to do what you can to keep your group engaged and to make sure that they're guided along the way of your meeting. So I recommend engaging at least every 5 to 10 minutes. Again, this doesn't have to be elaborate. It can be as simple as having people add a stamp to ideas or things that you're sharing, or use those emotes again and have them react to the things that they're hearing. Just make sure you're bringing them into that conversation along the way. And if you're sharing lots of information, it's important to have a seamless flow of that information so that everyone's kind of guided along that journey. And I love using the flyover plugin that you can find here under plugins. And if you search for flyover, that's what I've been using here to navigate from one slide to the next. So create that balance and flow. And last but not least, it's important in your meetings often to prioritize what's important. Get the input you need to make decisions and move them forward. If you're on a free plan or want a lightweight option to do this, stamps are a great way to do that. So just have folks add stamps to the shapes or the stickies that you're interested in getting their input on. If you have a pro plan and above, there's a few other more robust tools you can use for this. First is to start an open session. You can do that from your board here under share and then just start that open session. That will allow anyone to provide input that you share this link to. So if folks have a FigJam account or not, you don't have to worry about it. You just share that link and you're confident that you can get the input you need from your stakeholders. And then my favorite tool for this is starting a voting session. You can do that here in the top left corner, add a title if you want and indicate how many votes everyone gets, and then go ahead and start that. I've asked some of my Figmates to start voting on our summary here, so we'll see that in just a minute, but that allows you to get a more formal vote from your group on particular items, and you can pair that with the timer, which is right next to it, along with music in order to set a little bit of ambiance for your vote. As soon as you end your vote, you'll see the results and we'll see the summary here. I've asked our participants to vote on this, and if we look at the results of what everyone voted for here, we can see that our favorite was showing custom sticker libraries. So we see kind of what that vote looks like and what votes we had on that particular topic here. But in summary, the tips that I'm sharing for redesigning your meetings are to set those meeting guidelines, show your style with custom sticker libraries, have a super easy entry activity, create that balance and flow, and then prioritize what's important. And of our group, the custom sticker libraries are definitely the favorite we've shared today. Hope these are helpful and happy meeting with your group.
Hi everyone, I'm Laura. I'm a software engineer at Figma and I work specifically on the FigJam team. Today I'll be sharing with you some secret, but soon to be not so secret behind the scenes of how we use Figma and FigJam internally to support building out a ton of cool features. I'll be using some examples from building out voting in FigJam specifically. Along the way, I'll be sharing some of my favorite tips and tricks in my workflow as an engineer using FigJam and Figma. So, ultimate question, what do we use FigJam for? We use FigJam for basically everything. So brainstorming, costing, tech specs, timelining, presentations like this, you name it, I have probably tried it. And in the early stages of prototyping out voting, I had made this FigJam file to jam with some engineers about some potential engineering directions and next steps for building out this MVP. As you can see, this file is pretty large. So tip number 0, because engineers like to index starting at 0, organize your file with sections. You can make a section using this button down here and drag out. And in this file, I had organized the top with some context and constraints. The middle chunk has some architecture, some trade-offs and next steps, and the bottom I'd added a timeline. Makes this file a lot more digestible with sections. My next tip is my favorite tip in FigJam. You can copy and paste directly from Figma into FigJam. So here I had actually pulled some early mocks of what voting would look like, and we could constantly reference in this file what we were trying to build for. But you can copy and paste basically anything from Figma and FigJam. So give it a shot to see what works and let me know what doesn't work. Next, for all the engineers out there, you can draw engineering diagrams with end shapes and code blocks. You can access engineering shapes down here. You know, we can add a cylinder, we can add another file icon if we'd like. And with code blocks, you can get to it using this backtick We can drop a code block, you can add any code. Here I had drawn out a very simple engineering diagram for a proposed flow, and I had actually used the code block to outline the schema of the table I was proposing, and we could riff on it at the side as well. Lastly, you can really up-level your usage of FigJam using widgets. Here I had made this timeline to account for all the other things going on, our maker weeks, our offsites, and what deadlines we could kind of propose in building out the MVP version of voting. You can get here with this magic box down here. You can try searching for a lot of stuff, but here I had search for calendar, and here's the calendar widget. And we can just fill it out as we want. So yeah, this is an example of how we used FigJam. Now I'm going to hop over to the Figma world where we had designed out the MVP for voting in Figma. And full disclaimer before I get started there, despite having been an engineer here for 1.5 years, I'm a complete noob to using Figma. So these are my best tips and tricks for going 0 to 1 to navigating Figma almost like a pro. So here's our Figma file. We were pretty scrappy in the beginning. We were designing, iterating internally, implementing, and just constantly going through this cycle. And to keep track of what's done and not done, we had used Figma as our source of truth. We created this little component where our designer could let us know, if things were in the process of designing, if they had gone out of scope, or if they're ready for engineers. And we kept another one similar for engineers, where we could let our design partners and XFN partners know if something was ready internally for dog feeding. And this really helped keep a source of truth for such a visual product that we were building out. Now, as I'm going through this file, maybe I'm building out this component and I'm wondering, what is this font? To directly click into the component, you can go Command click, Control click on Windows, and this will directly select this component. You can see some of the properties, text properties. And if I want to go pixel perfect, if I hold Option and hover on neighboring components, I can see the exact padding and margin. Really helpful for getting things pixel perfect. For the rest of the details, you can click the Inspect menu, and that basically has everything you would possibly need as an engineer. The content, the typography, if you even just want to grab and go some CSS code, it's there for you. Now, those 2 tips basically are how I get through Figma for most of my day-to-day. But if you don't remember anything else from my talk, that is totally fine. You should remember this next tip. If you go Command or Control on Windows /, this brings up our quick search menu. You can search for anything here. So you can also search for keyboard shortcuts. And this will show you all the keyboard shortcuts in Figma. You can dig around, have fun, but sometimes, if I don't know how to draw a line in Figma, I can also just look this up in the quick search menu. Hopefully you enjoyed seeing a little bit of the behind the scenes of how engineering teams use Figma and FigJam internally.
Hi everyone, my name's Bettina. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a product designer here at Figma. Thank you all for tuning in, especially the ones who are watching this all in one sitting. I know that can be hard because screen fatigue is real, especially trying to stay focused on all the content coming in at you. Maybe you felt it when you're in our position, and you wonder, how do you make presentations that are interesting and keep people focused and engaged? And that's what I'm going to talk about today, presentations, specifically portfolio presentations in Figma. I'll be sharing some tips and tricks on making your portfolio presentations more engaging and capture your personality through examples I've done in my portfolio presentations, including the one that I used to land my current role here on Figma's design team. So first, intros. It's always nice to share a little bit more about yourself, about your personal self. One thing you could try is adding animation and playful graphics to make getting to know you more fun. Here, I animated cards flying in that showcase some pivotal sources of inspiration in my career. For this one, it was super simple, and you're going to see that a lot in my examples. I just linked some frames and used smart animation, specifically the gentle curve. Definitely check that out. Shout out to my Figmates who made that curve because I always use it, and it instantly up-levels the fidelity of my motion. Another intro idea. A theme that you're going to be seeing a lot is just bringing more of the web's interactivity to our presentations. I mean, we can prototype such powerful software in Figma, so why not add some of that power to our presentations? You see this grid pattern a lot in products like Masterclass or Pinterest. I always like to do a snippet of my illustrations in my intros. So I think using this grid is a quick way to run through everything while giving each piece enough space to be seen. If you want to try it, just put all of your assets in a frame that's larger than the presentation frame. Enable horizontal and vertical scrolling, and just put that on the parent frame so you can pan around what's inside. Onto navigation. So it's helpful to have headers and footers to remind people where they are in your story and also who you are, because they just met you, so maybe they forgot. If you want to leave an impact, you could try linking your navigation together to other frames, like a website menu here. It makes it easier to jump around if people ask you questions, or for people to more quickly parse through your deck after the presentation. So I think this is probably the most complex thing I'm going to show. How you can try reverse engineering this is creating components for your menu and then linking the menu component to the cover images for parts of your story. Another common website UI pattern we can leverage are modals. Maybe hot take because not everyone likes modals, but I think they're helpful for emphasizing a moment in your story while reminding people context through the background. I use modal metaphors here to talk about pros and cons of a particular exploration, and the audience can remember what design we're talking about because it's kind of in the background. This is a pretty simple step-by-step dissolve animation, but the biggest tip I'd recommend is using background blur to adjust the focus on foreground and background. We can also borrow web interactions to de-emphasize information. Maybe you have a step-by-step story and there's some additional detail that you might gloss over and just like sometimes elaborate on. And so you can use a scroll to opt into pulling up that additional information, like you see here. And I think of something like this as the presentation version of a footnote. So really helpful when you want that extra detail. Another way to use scroll is to create step-by-step storytelling. Here, I had a text-heavy moment in my story, and I really didn't want to create like just empty placeholder graphics to balance out the space. So instead, I designed this one-pager. And so when I was presenting, I would scroll through each step slowly so the audience was focused on where I'm talking. And how I think about building these scrollable pages is designing them the same way I design website landing pages, including thinking about where the fold is. This whole approach just brings back the theme of the web is borderless and Figma's on the web. So why do Figma presentations have to stick to a 16:9 frame? Lastly, I want to wrap up and bring us back to some graphic design fundamentals, just to anchor all this fun animation and typographic tricks, and just make sure it's all tied together with consistent layout, type, and color. So if we zoom out on this entire presentation, you'll see that the base color for all my slides is light gray. But when I'm starting a new case study and giving context, I use blue and ochre just to contrast it out and signal a new chapter. And finally, I also use black for every moment of decision making. And it ends up being a nice visual detail because most of the final design UI is light. And so that black frames the final UI really nicely. So in summary, the three things I want you all to take away from what I shared. One is to just blend the wonder of the web with the structure of slides. Simple technology can go a long way. You saw that a lot of the things I made were made with just Smart Animate or Dissolve. So it's really more about how you use the technology. And finally, have fun. Please tag me in things you were inspired to make. I'd love to see it. Thanks for listening.
Thank you so much, Rogie. Hey everyone, my name is Jackie. I'm a product designer on the editor team here at Figma. And today, I'd like to share 10 pro tips that I hope will 10x your workflow. And I guarantee there will be something on this list that even you Figma masters may not know about. So let's start with the basics. The first tip I want to share is you can zoom into any layer by double-clicking on its icon in the Layers panel. I actually just discovered this myself pretty recently, and I couldn't believe not knowing about it for all these years. For this next tip, We all know that you can select a top-level frame by clicking on its name in the corner, but did you know that you can also command-click on the frame to select it? This is helpful when the frame name is too small to click on, or if you're like me, when you're just too lazy to move your mouse to the corner. Next, some of you may already know you can select an object's children by pressing Enter and select its parents by pressing Shift-Enter. But now you can select the parents even easier by pressing \, which is the key right above the Enter key. So you can go up and down the layer tree, but with just 2 fingers. Now let's talk about copy and paste. Previously, Mallory and Joe have already shown us how to copy properties using Command Option C, but that shortcut copies all of the properties on the layer, and sometimes you just need to copy one of them. So you can do this by clicking on the left edge of a fill or an effect to select it, and then hit Copy, and then paste it to another layer. This is especially useful for copying images from one layer to another without also copying its strokes and shadows. As designers, we often need to screenshot our canvases to share with others. But have you ever had the experience of taking a screenshot only to find that everything is kind of zoomed out and hard to see, and that the frame names become distracting to look at? So a better way of doing this is by pressing S, which is to turn on the slice tool, and then drawing a slice around the area you want to capture. And then you can hit Command-Shift-C to copy it as a PNG. And this way you can get a pixel-perfect screenshot without the frame names showing on the canvas. One of the shortcuts I use the most in my work, and one that I want everyone to know about, is Command or Control-Shift-R for paste to replace. As you can tell from its name, it replaces your selection with whatever you have copied in the clipboard. And it's most powerful when you select multiple objects and replace them all at once. Personally, I need to replace the same things over and over again all the time. So I like to pair it with the Select All with Same Properties action, which you can find in the Edit menu, or as Laura has taught us, Command / to bring up the search bar to search for it. You can use it to replace something that's repeated in multiple places. When working with an auto layout frame, sometimes you may want to paste an object after one of the child items. You can do this by pressing Command-Shift-V, which normally is the shortcut for paste over selection. But when you use it inside an auto layout, it'll paste the object after any item that you've selected in the stack. Speaking of auto layout, let's go over some tips to get your auto layout set up more quickly. First, you can double-click the vertical or horizontal edge of an object to set it to hug content. Conversely, you can hold Option and double-click the edge to set it to fill parent. Once you get used to setting hug and fill this way, you'll really speed through auto layout setups in seconds. For those who prefer to resize paddings on the canvas, you can hold Shift while dragging the pink handlebars to snap it to your nudge value. You know, numbers like 8 or 10. I personally prefer 8. Finally, if you find yourself having to change the auto layout spacing mode from packed to space between a lot, you can do this more quickly by selecting the alignment grid and pressing X to toggle between the two modes. And this will save you a lot of clicks going in and out of the advanced layout modal. And those are the 10 pro tips I have for you today. I hope you found something that will 10x your workflow.
Oh hi, Figma pros. My name is Ian and I'm a researcher, and I'm excited to give you my 10 usability testing like the pros pro tips. You can see we're going to have 3 sections before the usability test, during the usability test, and after the usability test. So let's get right into it. Here, before the usability test, you should set up a key flow for each section that you'll be going through to gather questions from the team. Set the stage and include your team and stakeholders in a fun and interactive session to gather questions. Quick, memorable sessions like this are great for team building and teaching and learning about research. You can set up a scenario, explain what you'll be asking about, and include your research questions to help your collaborators contribute. This helps make sure that we're asking the right questions, staying aligned on our topics, and helps new question writers know what to write. And this also speeds up our coding in sessions later. You can drag the stickies around the UI that you'll be evaluating. So here, how long does it take to make this box 600 pixels wide, 700 pixels wide? You can ask that question. Also, link the research report, embed the Asana project, and define the RACI with a template. It's really easy to traverse the project when you can click on the research plan right here and open it. You can also see the Asana project here. I haven't added any details, but you certainly could. And then you can see what's going on with your project right away. You can also add a template, and what that will allow you to do is add a RACI matrix. So if you're not sure who should be doing what on your project, add it in really quickly. Look, it's all built out for you. Takes no time. Sweet. All right. What is the next thing that's sweet? Accountability. Make sure that your key stakeholders have their voices heard and ensure that you have testing with an impact. If this is your VP of product, you can circle back and share fresh insights with them and know that this is the person you need to follow up with. If you have two VPs of product and a VP of something else that are arguing about what questions you should be asking, you can vote to break a deadlock. Click down here and type vote, and you'll see some options for how you can vote. You can click on the widget and drag the votes out here. You can also see options from the community. During the session, usability testing sessions, you can have 1 to 3 observers take notes and include guidelines for those observers so they can take good notes as the sessions are progressing. You can include observer guidelines so people know what to do. You can also add frameworks to help people take notes. So if you're taking notes in a specific way, you can add these frameworks into FigJam just by dragging them in. It's really easy. Also include the moderator guide. It's a really great place to take notes, but as you can see here, the notes will get very cluttered very quickly. That brings me to my next pro tip, which is to create a section around each notes area. You can copy this section for each new user, and you can also have a parking lot to follow up with items that you don't have time for now, later. Here you can see an example of the first participant. We have the first flow that they'll go through. We'll take notes here. The second flow they'll go through. We'll take notes here. And the moderator guide, we can also take notes here. And when we're ready for the second participant, we just copy this and we have a whole fresh area for us to take notes. 7th tip, employ the Shayna strategy. Sometimes you just know that you need to go do something and fix something. We saw this accessibility bug a couple days ago, and Shayna logged it immediately in an Asana ticket. You can add stickies here, and once you've selected it, you can add it to a task in Asana. It's really super easy. I won't do it because it'll mess up my Asana, but you should. After the sessions, after the usability testing is over, you're going to have so much information. Look at all this. There's so much to digest and to dig through. How will you ever make sense of all this? And how will you make sense of it across all of these users? One recommendation that I have is that you select a bunch of stickies all at the same time and click this clean up. You can tidy your stickies so that all of a sudden they're more organized. You can space them out so that they are overlapping or condensed in a way that works well for you. Or you can change how they look so that, again, the way that the stickies are structured works well for you as you're starting analysis. You can also make FigJam sections for each major theme or UI area. So when you're wondering about what are these accelerator themes, you can go ahead and just drag those into this area. And now you know all of the people who had insights related to accelerators, or insights related to time on task, or insights related to errors. And if you drag this section around a certain area, it will actually grab all of those stickies. So let's say you have a block of errors. You can easily go in and take these and remove them. So drag sticky by sticky into the corresponding section and then add big stickies to capture the key themes. If everybody loves right sidebar input, that's helpful to know. Sort the stickies into a section and sections into an order that makes sense, and then write this out in Slack. See? No errors here, just good insights. And now these insights are in Slack and ready for our stakeholders. You can also export your stickies to CSV. So just select these stickies, make sure you don't have anything else selected, and then right-click and export. Click CSV, and all the sticky notes will be exported to a file. You can also build a quick report with color coding and interactions. So now you know that there are a bunch of errors. You can drag that section down over the flow that you've already created and showcase the different areas that have messages. So no errors on flow 4, great to know. No errors here either, also good to know. My last tip is to learn and learn. Every company is different, and the first time you do this usability testing, it will not go perfectly. Open a retro and learn how to do a retro as a team. This is the most helpful thing. So you learn what to do better next time and what to keep doing and all that good stuff. So go forth and retro, my friends. I hope this was helpful, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Hey folks, I'm Kai, my pronouns are they and them, and I run DesignOps here at Figma, and I'm also a huge facilitation nerd. FigJam has always been my go-to tool for running smooth meetings, workshops, icebreakers, all that jazz, and I want to talk a little bit about some really great FigJam tips for facilitators, so let's dive in. As Laura had mentioned earlier, one of the things that makes FigJam super powerful are all of the widgets at our disposal, widgets made both by us here at Figma and also by our amazing community. These are just some widgets that I really love to use in my facilitation practice. So we have activity trackers. You can come in here. You can see we're already tracking some really important conversations. You can hit play. You can pause if your team needs a break. You can resume. And then once your team has wrapped up a certain part of a conversation, you hit stop, and you have this really great sort of tracker of how much time you spent talking about different things. There's a lot of different use cases this could be valuable for. I also love sprinkling simple polls throughout different workshops and presentations. This simple poll widget is great. We can really get into some of those burning questions. And there's also some really nice advanced settings to boot. This I love so much. If you are struggling to figure out, an icebreaker for your meeting, Donut can come and save the day. There's this amazing Donut widget that allows you to come in and generate some really great activities and icebreakers for your team. And then finally, you can also find a lot of really fun and whimsical widgets in FigJam. I love this little coin flip animation. If you and your team are trying to, resolve something at the drop of a hat. So while widgets are super powerful, I love that FigJam is flexible enough to where we, as facilitators, can build our own artifacts. So let's dive in and make something together. Let's make what I like to call a temperature check. These are really great to get signal on how everyone is feeling in your meeting and sort of get a temperature of the room. I know we've all been on Zoom and we've asked people how they're feeling. There could be a bit of awkwardness. Maybe you get some thumbs up. Maybe you get some nods. These temperature checks are going to really help you cut through all of that ambiguity. So let's make one. I'm going to hit Shift S and just draw out a little section here in FigJam. I'm going to pull up this rectangle shape and just drag it into our section, give it a really simple resize, make it feel more like a button, and then just use Option Shift to snap some of those copies into place. We're going to want 5 different options for this temperature check. So we're just going to select everything in the section and resize it a bit. And we've already got something that's starting to look really nice. So let's add some text here. We're going to call this How Are We Feeling? And we're going to include 5 options. So the first one is I feel excited and eager to move on. The next one is kind of similar. I feel good and ready. The third one's going to be a bit more neutral, maybe something like, I'm just here for the ride, feeling okay. This one's going to be, I have some questions or concerns before we move on. And the last one is going to be, I could really use a 5-minute break. You can see here we have some text truncation happening, and that's no problem. We're just going to come in here, resize the section, grab all these again, move it out until it feels good, and that's it. We have this amazing temperature check artifact, and folks can come in here and stamp their face on sort of where they are in the meeting. Because this is my meeting, we're definitely feeling excited and eager to move on. These are some examples of this being used in practice. You can see one that is very similar to the one we just built. I actually used the same prompts in this one, but You can also really abstract your temperature checks if you want to. You can use emojis, you can use more or less options, and just really have some fun with it and make it useful for the meeting type that you are running. So one more tip I have for y'all is going to really keep all of your FigJam files a bit more organized. And the pro tip here is using sections to create thumbnails for your files, which is something I love to do. So I already have this section here. We're going to pull it right up, and then let's come in here and just maybe add some stickers. I'm going to use, this is my favorite sticker in all of FigJam. I'm going to put it here, give it a little rotation, and maybe I'm going to come in here and add another one. I'm just resizing everything, making it feel good, and something like that feels really fun. And then I'm just going to right-click on the section and hit Set as Thumbnail. We're going to wait for that confirmation message. And then once we go back into our files, boom, right there, we've got FigJam for facilitation and our beautiful cover. That is all I have for y'all today. Thanks so much for listening.
Thanks, Rogie. What's up, everyone? I'm Jake. I'm a developer advocate here at Figma. I use the pronouns he and they, and today I'm going to be talking about the things that get me most excited as an engineer in Figma, and that's components, component properties, and our access to them with the plugin API. All right, let's get into it. So, we're going to look at a component set here. So if you're familiar with components, this might be familiar, but essentially this is how we define a button component in this case. We have all the different permutations of the button using component properties. You can see the colors are changing, the sizes are changing, states are changing. Component set is how we kind of define that component. But if you're using Figma, most of the time you're interacting with an instance of a component. So this is an instance of that button component, and we have a question, I am Jake, and an icon with a heart, right? And so the properties over here are how we kind of manipulate this button within the constraints of our component library. So the first type of property we have over here is called a variant property. And so this, in this case, is size. And we can see that we can choose between 3 different size options. So we can switch to the small, we can switch to the large. We also have a variant property, right? So this one is primary or danger here. And we named that property variant. So that's the variant type, is selecting from a preset of options. Next, we have Boolean. So Boolean is true or false. So disabled, true or false. And we can also chain a Boolean property to the visibility of another node, or in this case, another property. So when I disable and enable icon start exists, when that's true, we see an icon start over here, and when it's false, it hides it. And you'll notice that it's hiding and showing a property over here called icon start. Now, icon start is a property type of instance swap. And what that allows us to do is swap out different instances of components inside of like a slot inside of the component. And last but not least, we have text. So we can come in here and change this text property, and that updates the text in here without performing an override on the component. It actually says, no, this text node's value is whatever is in this property. So those are properties. Really cool things we can do there with properties, but as an engineer, I get most excited about accessing this stuff using the plugin API. So I've published a plugin called the Component Inspector, and it's available in the community, and you can access it today, and we're going to take a peek at it. So I'm going to select this instance, and we're going to run my component inspector. And what we see here is something that engineers might find very familiar. So we have an instance of a button on the right, and we have all of its properties over here, and then we have code on the left that is instance code as it would be written in React as a JavaScript framework. So we can see that like our disabled value is going true and false. The icon start exists, we can see is hiding and showing the icon start slot property. We can come in here and change that, and we see that the icon kind of gets rendered as a slot property. We also have our size and variant here. And then the text is being inferred as children of this component or instance. And so it's being passed in using children, which is a React convention. Now, this, you can tell we're like hiding some things. Like we don't see state here. We'll talk about why in a second. It has to do with that asterisk. And then also like icon start exists as a property is kind of just being inferred as opposed to actually being explicitly written as a Boolean. The way that we construct a component in code is kind of like how you construct a component in Figma in a component set. We actually write component definitions to kind of set up the properties of our components. In my component inspector, we're generating that code too. So here's a function component in React. It's not one for one. These can be very subjective things, but what it attempts to do is consolidate these properties in a language that developers can understand. So we have these variants explicitly typed up here at the top. We have a props interface for the button that has like the disabled Boolean, icon start as React nodes, the size is this size type, et cetera, et cetera. We also have, for the ones that default, their default value. We see children here, which is that text property, and then just like a rough approximation of how you'd render this. But in addition to having this for React, we also have it for Angular, and we have it for Vue. And for Vue, we have the option API and the composition API, as well as web components, and a JSON output of like the data that I'm processing with the component. The point is that properties are very interesting, and we get really excited about them as developers, we get excited about them as designers, but depending who you ask, they mean different things. So as we saw, there were certain properties that like got ignored from the design side of things, right? We ignored them when we output this code, but then similarly, there are properties in our code base that don't exist in Figma. So things like a click handler or an href, and although this isn't the best case because we have descriptive text, in many cases you'd have a property like an ARIA label for accessibility reasons, and those things don't exist in the Figma component. They don't necessarily need to. They could, which is an exciting idea, but like right now, like they don't exist, right? And so we have properties that exist in code only, properties that exist in design only, and my plugin attempts to kind of like do the happy medium and find that consistency, right? And that's when we talk about like collaboration between design and development, it's about learning how to navigate those waters and optimize where you can, but then also embrace the differences. One of the ways to do that with this plugin, like I said, is we saw that like that state value is hidden. Well, that's because that state value has values like hover. And in code, hover is something that we write a style for. We don't use a property for. And so I allow you in the plugin to specify a prefix to ignore properties. So in my case, the asterisk means ignore this property, don't render it in code. So you have control over that in the plugin. Again, this is like a subjective thing. Like this conversation is such a subjective conversation based on how you set up your design files and how you set up your code base. So that was a lot. My Figma tip for today is a piece of functionality that I'm using in this plugin called the document change event. For those that are unaware or have never built a plugin, if you want to respond to changes in the document, so in my case, whenever you edit a component or edit an instance and we were toggling things, it was re-rendering the code in the plugin. The mechanism to do that for the longest time was very hard. You had to write a lot of code to like respond dynamically like that. Today, it's way easier. And what the document change event listener allows you to do is say, I'm looking for this type of a change to this type of a node, and I can respond accordingly. Or there's other document change events too, but in my case, I only cared about property change events for components, instances, or component sets. And if any change happened to any of that met those conditions, it re-rendered the component. So document change events makes life a whole lot easier when you're developing plugins. Check out the component inspector in the community and join the Friends of Figma Discord and get that developer role. See you on the net.
That was amazing. I learned a ton. I thought I knew a lot about this tool, and every time we do this live stream, I learn a bunch and add new tools to my book. So super stoked on this. Anytime we have future live streams, you're going to see those at figma.com/events. You can register for them, but also we want to keep making our live streams better. So any suggestions and ideas that you have, hit up this email address, community@figma.com, and send us a message. This could be a brand new, fresh idea, or it could be ways to improve the ones that we currently have. We love all the feedback. Once again, I'm Rogie. It's been an honor to host this. Have a great day. Happy designing.